How not to panic. Ah! No. How not to panic is, how do we not panic? Panic is extreme fear, extreme anxiety, loss of control, where your sense of self is completely subsumed by the fear that you are feeling. I get anxiety, fortunately less and less, and a full-on panic attack that affects your breathing, your temperature, might cause you to pass out. In some cases, people, obviously, you'll know if you have it, feel like they're going to die or have a heart attack. Blessedly, I don't have that condition. But I reckon, I suppose, there's a spectrum, isn't there, that begins with the low hum of anxiety, possibly the ham of anxiety, if you can imagine a nasty, stringy sheet of anxiety hanging in pink sheets. I suffer from anxiety, but not panic attacks. I think that that's where it's heading. The tools, I think, to prevent panic attacks are related to pretty obvious fundamental things. Watching the way you think and watching the way you breathe. At the point that you're on the precipice of a panic attack, perhaps it's already too late. I say create conditions where panic is less likely. It depends, I suppose, whether you take a kind of materialist neurological approach to the condition or, as I obviously do, a more spiritual approach. I suppose from a neurological perspective, people would say, well, there's just some sort of neurochemical imbalance that's causing panic. From a spiritual perspective, I would say, what is the information? What are you afraid of? I believe quite deeply in therapy and recovery. I believe that it is possible to be free of even quite profound psychological conditions. The reason I believe that is because I've had one profound psychological condition at least, i.e. addiction, chemical dependency that was quite extreme, and had it continued without the therapy that I was granted and the support I was given would have led to a massive crisis. Then it was very difficult to evaluate whether I was having panic attacks or not, because I was taking so many stimulants, depressives, opioids, etc., that my state was in constant flux, which I suppose, is lends itself to the conclusion, well, there you are, you see, there's a chemical, a material component to your state, to your feeling, to your state of being. And of course there is, but what I'm saying is that beneath that, there are deeper states, ever deeper states. And I think it's in accessing these states that are beneath the superficial panic, even if it feels totally profound, that the answer lies. I think that it would be impossible to go into a state of panic if I was breathing deeply and calmly and mindful of my breath, that my breath was uppermost in my mind. You know that I think a component of panic will be shallow, sharp breathing. If you are breathing deeply, and I guess in full-on panic, you're like, I can't even control my breathing, I can't even get there. That's why I again assert that we don't deal with it in the acute point of crisis. We deal with it more broadly in terms of the way we live our lives, i.e. bringing full attention to our mental health as an absolute priority of the way we live. On awakening, recognize, now I am awake. If you're anything like me, a set of almost preordained thought patterns will kick in like a radio station of ongoing neurosis. The first thing I have to do is remember, there's that pattern, there's that thinking mind again. I observe it instead of delving right into it. Do you wake up in the dead of night like I do and are therefore more susceptible to negative thoughts in that condition? It seems that there are different times in the weather system of the mind where you are more vulnerable to these storms. But whatever I'm feeling, and at whatever point in the day I'm feeling it, I know I have to return my attention to the breath, and I have to learn to watch the symptom that I'm concerned with. Those of you that saw my Under the Skin episode with Muji and the clips I put up on YouTube there will have noticed that when he was teaching me to watch my thoughts, Muji is a great spiritual teacher and meditation teacher, I said, I am watching my thoughts, but now I'm feeling sad. I felt sadness, tears behind the eyes, sadness here in the heart. He said, continue to observe, continue to observe. In Dune, which they're remaking and probably releasing sometime in the future when all cinemas are abandoned, post-apocalyptic parodies of a hellscape, In June, in the book June, there's this sort of line, I will not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the death that, consumes the flesh. It's sort of a little bit like Iago's lines on jealousy, or is it Othello's lines on jealousy? Anyway, about like fear consuming your flesh. And in that quote from June, he says, I will watch the fear, and the fear will pass through me, and where the fear has gone, only I will remain. I think they even use it in the June trailer, actually. And I feel like that if you are dealing with anxiety prior to it spiking, you have a lot less chance of experiencing full-on panic. And when it does come, you will remember this practice, these techniques, these tools. Like someone said to me recently, we can amend our thoughts. We can intervene in our thinking. If you're all the time thinking, I'm not good enough, I'm worthless, I bet this will go wrong, I shouldn't have done that, that was terrible. If that's what you're thinking, it's going to induce a certain state. If you are continually allowing your thoughts to be guided by learned principles, in my experience, principles derived from well-being traditions that are ancient and well practiced. This is the aspect, of course, of religion that I'm interested in. A religion as it applies to personal morality and personal spiritual well-being, i.e., watch the thoughts. Do not become immersed in the thoughts. Observe the feelings. Do not become observed in the feelings. If I stand on a tack or a sharp stone, the feeling, ow, my foot hurts, is a cue to action. If I'm in some neurotic loop of doubt, it's likely that there is something that's less obvious that needs to be addressed. If I've cultivated a state of awareness and alertness, stay alert, like COVID, stay alert. If I've cultivated a state of awareness, then I'm more, by definition, aware of incoming, even if they are incoming internally, fluctuations and changes. In the 12-step program, one of the steps, step 10, is continue to take personal inventory, and when I was wrong, promptly admitted it, right? Meaning that if you have undertaken a spiritual process, acknowledging your identity essentially as not the fulcrum and totality of your being, but just one aspect of your awareness. Your identity is here. You are the awareness that's observing that identity. If you believe it's possible to evolve and change the way you are, I don't always have to be like this. I don't always have to engage in those behaviors. I don't always have to have those relationships. Don't always have to do those jobs. There's, in the limitless neuroplasticity, there are a super state of near infinite possibilities. Of course, there are limitations, social, cultural, physical, but those are surprisingly plastic if I am aware and if I am willing to apply will in alliance with certain principles. I can change, I can become different. I was not a person who could have a happy marriage and be a father to 2 children. And sometimes I, feel the haunting echo of that old life. But I've spent enough time living in the awareness that when I feel that stuff, that flux, that pull, that magnetism, I'm able to observe it instead of immediately webbing myself to it, So change is absolutely possible in terms of transition of lifestyle and in terms of transition of state. How to avoid panic then? Observe the thoughts even when they are not directly leading you to panic. Stay aware. Stay aware of the kind of things like, if it was a nutritionist issue, you would keep a food diary. Oh, look, every time I eat bread, I get IBS. That's a random example, by the way. I don't have IBS. Not that there's anything wrong with it. If you do have it, I'm just letting you know. If, like, I kept a food diary, I would know, oh, every time I eat oranges or whatever, I feel these feelings. Well, perhaps we can do this with our inner life. This is somewhat what is meant by staying alert in the step 10 sense, keeping personal inventory. Oh, look, every time I'm rude to someone, I don't feel good. Every time I selfishly pursue these goals, I don't feel good. Every time I spend time with that person who belittles me, become aware and recognize that we have some agency in our own life. That's at the level of thought. At the level of feeling, continue to observe the states and behaviors and actions that cultivate or engender a negative sensation in you, and the reverse of that. See, I feel like, this is my mad optimism, that even a thing like a panic attack, I believe, is trying to communicate with you. It's trying, there's something in you unborn, some aspect of your psyche, some aspect of your total self that is not being realized and wants to be heard, that wants to be addressed, that wants to be actualized and realized. And I feel that we become so bonded and wedded to a particular aspect of our identity that we're unwilling to yield to it. I've had things that would be akin to mental breakdowns in my life where I've just sort of fell apart and thought, oh my God, I don't know what to do, I don't know how I'm going to cope. But because I have a spiritual discipline in my life, in my case the 12-step one that I've been taught, I'm able to put my challenges and problems through that rubric, through that set of rules. So if I, and I know people that are in recovery that have panic attacks, and what I will say to them is stay with your breathing, observe your thoughts, and don't think, oh, I only need to deal with this when it's happening. Recognize this is something that needs to be continually addressed, that there is some aspect of the self that has not yet been heard. In Jungian terms, something coming from the shadow. All greatness will come from there. By definition, all possibility of change will come from the unrealized aspect of yourself. Things will transition through your psyche. I want to become this kind of person. I want to live this kind of life. Interesting to note that it will perhaps be less effective if the reference points for the change that you are aspiring towards have come from your culture. I should like to be a quarterback in an NFL football side, or I should like to be a karate kid. It's difficult to believe in the authenticity of your repressed impulses if your objectives have all been prescribed to you by the dominator culture. So, how I believe you overcome panic attacks, or to give this video its proper title, how to what? Not panic? Is that what we're calling it, Django?
Or how to panic less.
How to panic less. That's our goal. We just want you to panic less. How to panic less is to spend all your time aware and observing yourself. I'm aware continually of these feelings in these centers in my body, the heart, the stomach. How could I not be? I'm basically naked. Like, I feel like when there's anxiety in my stomach, I sort of listen to it. And sometimes I think, oh, this is anatomical. I just need to go to the bathroom. Other times I think, what are you not dealing with? What are you not dealing with? And at the heart and in the sadness behind the eyes. Sometimes we are not still enough. I say that panic is an unaddressed energy surging from beneath the level of the consciousness. The more we expand the personal consciousness, which prayer and meditation, I believe, does, the more we will become aware of information that was previously hidden from us. Become more aware. Pray and meditate. Recognize that the material world, by which I mean the world of rationalism and logic, does not hold all the solutions to being you. As Terence McKenna said, you cannot understand the universal mystery using the neural network of a primate. We are simple creatures, subject to much complexity. Unless we are willing to go beyond our previous understanding of ourselves, unless we are willing to integrate with nature and natural intelligence, which may not appear to us within the limited lexicon of material experience. Another way of saying it could be mysterious or seemingly supernatural, or any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Who is that? Who said that thing? Is it that sci-fi writer? One of you all know. We have to have a relationship with the mystery, and the mystery is talking to you. You will panic less if you become more aware. You will panic less if you invite the mystery to be a part of your life, if you have a practice, principles by which you live, instead of living on the limited bandwidth of human materialist experience. I'm this, I'm that, I want this, I want that, this is good, that's bad. This simple algebraic kindergarten rubric that we are dealt by a culture that wants to keep us dumb.